The president wants to spy on 200 million Americans without a warrant. Has he read this document, which he was sworn to uphold?
Now, I will not have you libel Abraham Lincoln.
I don't understand the problem with registering guns. We register cars.
Mark Levine brings you the news the government doesn't want you to know.
Today, an explosive story about connections between white supremacists and Islamic terrorists.
When there's a conflict between Scalia's conservative values and the Constitution of the United States, he throws away the Constitution.
When we do have secret prisons, that is not what America's all about.
Let's go to Mark in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. A tragedy in Colorado, to me, looked too often like so many other tragedies. We hear the stories again and again, only the places change, whether it's Virginia Tech, or whether it's a small school in Littleton, Colorado, whether it's an Amish schoolhouse in Pennsylvania. The same thing seems to happen. A crazy man, and it's almost always a man, comes in, has very high-powered weapons, and starts shooting, and a lot of innocent people are dead. I want to talk today about whether this could have been prevented. Then I want to move on and talk about Mitt Romney, specifically the questions that are rising over what he's hiding by not releasing his tax returns, and whether or not his retroactive resignation at Bain actually holds any weight whatsoever. Then the LIBOR scandal, how it is that 16 bankers managed to manipulate all of the interest rates in the world, and the larger question of whether the super rich play by rules that the rest of us don't play by. And then I want to briefly touch the situation in Syria, where it looks like the rebels may just be able to succeed, something I've been hoping for a long time, and the question of U.S. policy and what is next. So we got a big full agenda for us today, and the first thing I want to do is welcome my guest, Mike Lane. Mike is a Republican strategist. He is the president of Intelligence Strategies. He and I often disagree on many things, except that we agree that Americans should be debating issues like these.
Amen.
All right, so let's start with Colorado. I think we can both agree the young man is crazy. There is a certain percentage of every population of human beings where someone is wacko. I don't think he's a terrorist. I think it looks to me like he's just something got a screw loose.
From what we know now, yes.
Okay. My question is this. It says right here in the Washington Post that his assault rifle jammed during the rampage. The guy had 2 Glocks pistols with 40 caliber bullets and body armor, and if his gun had not malfunctioned, it is likely to have had far more deaths. My question is this: what do reasonable people need, even if we couldn't prove he was crazy before the crime, why do people need assault rifles? Why do people, other than cops and law enforcement and the military, why do they need body armor? Why do they need high-capacity magazines? We liberals, or at least some of us, maybe not the president, but some of us have been talking about these issues for a long time. Crazy people are going to happen. But a crazy person with a knife does a lot less damage than a crazy person with an assault rifle.
Well, that's true, Mark. But in this case, we had a crazy person who knew how to build bombs.
He had explosives too. I want to talk about that too.
There were at least 30 bombs that they found in his apartment they broke in there. The carnage would have been much more terrible and much more horrific had he chosen another way to do it, or had he been forced to choose another way to do it. If he'd have gone in there firebombing the place, we would have lost virtually everybody in that theater, and it would have been absolutely grotesque.
Let's not give anybody any ideas. My point is this: we restrict very powerful weapons. We are fighting very hard, some would argue not hard enough, to keep Iran from getting nuclear weapons. But we don't allow every American to have a nuclear warhead. Of course not. We don't allow anthrax. We don't allow ricin. We ban these very, very dangerous things. We've banned machine guns since 1933, and I can't recall, correct me if I'm wrong, a big machine gun killing since the 30s, since the time of Prohibition, since the ban on machine guns. Assault rifles were recently banned. You can argue the ban wasn't strong enough. I actually would argue it wasn't strong enough. But then one of the things Republican Congress did was make guns like the one he used legal again. You don't need an assault rifle to shoot a deer. Can we stipulate to that?
Mark, what do you mean by an assault rifle? If you're
a semi-automatic Glock pistol. Let's start there.
Well, you don't hunt deer with pistols anyway.
Okay.
But you hunt deer with rifles.
So what's the purpose of a Glock? I mean, if you're in the military or the police, that's fine. Is it self-defense? Do you need a semi-automatic Glock with 40 caliber bullets for self-defense?
I would argue yes.
Wouldn't a normal handgun be just sufficient to keep someone from breaking into your home?
I would argue no. If there are case after case after case where something as small as a 9mm just isn't big enough to do the job when you're facing somebody who's crazed and coming after you. You choose the self-defense weapon of your choice. The Constitution doesn't specify larger versus smaller. And as long as we're guaranteed that you have the opportunity, constitutionally guaranteed, to defend yourself and your family and your property, I'd hate to get on the slippery slope of starting to decide what you need and what you don't need, because only you can make that decision.
Well, we can get to the Constitution in a minute. You know my view, which is the Constitution says that every well-regulated militia has the right to bear arms, but even Justice Scalia seems to believe that reasonable gun regulation is allowed under the Second Amendment. The question is, what's reasonable? As I said, we already banned nuclear weapons, we banned ricin, we banned anthrax, we banned the smallpox vaccine is very carefully kept. You're right, it's not just the guns, it's the explosives. Why should people have access to these kinds of massive explosives? If you are a contractor trying to blow up a bridge and you need TNT, okay, that's fine, you're licensed, get your TNT. But why could this crazy person get through the mail something enough to cause this kind of carnage?
Mark, as you know, these bombs can be made out of common, everyday household kitchen products. When
Not quite this powerful.
When we had the situation in Oklahoma City, that was essentially fertilizer that would, fertilize a farmer's field, et cetera. That was the main explosive ingredient in that particular thing. I mean, what are you going to ban? You're going to ban fertilizer? You're going to ban household products?
No, I'm not going to ban fertilizer, but let's deal with things one at a time. Body armor. Tell me this. If you are not in law enforcement, if you are not a police officer, if your job is not a bodyguard, why do you need body armor unless your goal is to protect yourself while inflicting pain on others?
Well, no, it's to protect yourself. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you're inflicting pain on someone else. If you happen to be a target of
If you happen to be a target, I'm fine with it.
Well,
if you happen to be a target.
So now body armor, which doesn't hurt anyone, you're saying that now I need a judge's order that I can, carry a concealed, bulletproof vest or something like that? I don't think that gets at the problem.
If someone goes out and they're buying body armor and they're buying high-capacity magazines, let me go there, high-capacity magazines. We know that Jared Loughner in Arizona was stopped after murdering a dozen people and shooting a bullet into Congresswoman Gabby Giffords.
6 people actually died in that one.
6 people, okay. We know that the reason why more people didn't die is because he had to change his magazine. He had a high-capacity magazine, 30 bullets, takes a second and a half to change it, and in that second and a half, some very brave people jumped on him and saved people from dying, from more lives being lost. If you can't hit a deer in 30 bullets, shouldn't the deer have a second and a half to get away? What do you need high-capacity magazines for? You're too lazy to take that second and a half to change it?
The magazine isn't what's doing anything. It's the people, Mark. We need to find a way to keep the Jared Loughners and this guy out in Colorado whose name I don't even want to mention because the president chose not to mention it. Why give him the
I haven't mentioned his name either.
Publicity?
I'm fine with that.
We need to find a way to identify these people.
You're going to stop crazy. You're going to find the 0.01% of people that are schizophrenic or crazy or whatever mental unbalance.
No,
that you're not going to find them. There's always going to be them, and every population's going to have some of them.
Every law enforcement professional and every anti-terrorist professional will tell you the thing they fear most is the lone gunman. That's the one that's the hardest to identify and impossible to stop.
Exactly. You say impossible to stop. This occurred in a mall, I think 90 seconds from the closest police station. The police, by all accounts, answered very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. So, I have no problems with the authorities in this case. My problem is a guy can buy all this weaponry just with no real checks at all. I mean, you didn't answer my question about high-capacity magazines.
You're right. When you have somebody who's a Looney Tune like this, there has to be a way of identifying them. Now, this is not going to work completely, but maybe it'll work a little bit. We have this whole thing that we've been doing since 9/11, when if you see something, report it. Do something about it. maybe we need to start developing a culture here where we take care of our fellow man, and if you see something, report it. You know,
you can have no disagreement with me. If you're a teacher or you're a counselor and someone seems like they're crazy and dangerous, absolutely.
There's a lot in retrospect out of this Looney Tune in Colorado that in the last 3 months he started going downhill and going downhill visibly. Well, when you see that, I think it's up to each of us to take individual responsibility and maybe be a little concerned about that.
I agree with you, but I also think there's some very common sense laws that, while we may not be able to prevent 100% this kind of thing from happening, can dramatically decrease it. One of the things that you know that I've been complaining about for a long time, and I think you support me on this one, is the gun show loophole. The idea that if you go to a licensed gun shop, they have to run a background check on you, but if you go to a gun show, you can be as crazy as this guy was with his I don't know what his, I guess the red hair was to be the Joker on Batman. I think that was what he was believing. But you can be absolutely crazy. You could have a long string of felonies. You go to a gun shop and you buy a gun without a background check. I think you agree with me.
You just misstated the case. You said you go to a gun shop.
Excuse me, a gun show. I meant to say a gun show. A gun show. And can you agree with me that that would be, it would satisfy me and a lot of other people just to close this loophole so it's not out there, and it might just save a life. What's wrong with that?
You know, there's not a lot wrong with it, but let me talk about what you're not accomplishing with it.
Well, that's just one thing. I got other ideas too.
The gun show loophole does not apply to licensed gun dealers.
That's right.
Dealing, you know, at gun shows. The gun show loophole refers to if you attend the gun show and you walk in as a private individual and you have something you'd like to trade or sell or something like that, there's no law that's going to, you know, tell you as a private individual what you're going to do with that. All right, so if you decide that...
And I'd be fine with a national database, that someone would call in 1-800, and if they're off the database, you can sell them the gun. It takes 2 minutes.
Well, no, but how are you going to have a law that's going to control what you can sell to me as a private individual? I just don't see where Congress is going to be empowered to do this.
I don't think it's that hard to do at all. We have all kinds of restrictions on sale of all kinds of things. I can't sell you anthrax. I can't sell you ricin. I can't sell you arsenic.
But those are illegal products.
No, but if
constitutionally guaranteed, right to bear arms.
If I'm a scientist and I'm legally allowed to work with anthrax, or maybe I'm working in the Pentagon trying to find the solution to stop anthrax, I still can't legally sell to you. I want you to answer that question when we come back. We'll go on more about gun control, and then we got to ask the question, what is Mitt Romney hiding? Why won't he just disclose his taxes? What is secretly in those taxes? We'll see what the Republican thinks of that. If you want to call in and join us, we'd love to have you. 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. Back after this.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try.
Only you.
Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about ripped off money. Nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches. Don't play with fire.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire.
Why don't you just wash your car at home?
When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water.
At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site.
That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff.
You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. dedicated men and women who put their country first.
Here again, the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. By now, every American, or most of us, know where Aurora, Colorado is. And virtually all of us go to movies. And it's not that hard to imagine. I don't know about you, but when I hear about these incidents take place, I imagine myself in the movie theater and what I would do if a gunman came in. And would I dive down below the seats? Would I be brave enough to shield my loved ones? It looks like 2 men died actually covering their loved ones, their girlfriends, to save their lives. We lost 2 members of the military in the rampage. For all the discussion about Fast and Furious, about a border agent who was killed by guns across the Mexican border, there's virtually no discussion in Congress or in state legislatures about how to prevent this kind of rampage. My guest is Republican strategist Mike Lane. Mike, before the break, I was asking about various laws that I want to see whether you'd support or not. So your view is that we can't close the gun show loophole, which is the loophole that says if you go to a gun show, you can buy from a non-licensed dealer, even if you're certifiably crazy and a felon. Why can't we simply license gun shows and say, if you show your weapon at a gun show? I mean, what two people do behind closed doors, it's a lot harder for a crazy person to go up and find you, Mike Lane, because you're selling them a gun, than it's for them just to walk in a gun show. Right?
The answer is, Mark, you can do that. But then you know what happens? The people who are doing the private sales, they move off the show floor into the parking lot, and they do it there where there's no jurisdiction. I've thought about this. I've wanted to know, how can you make this work? And it doesn't work. There's no way.
I would simply make it a crime to sell anyone arms without running a background check, and I'd make it really easy to do. Dial 1-800 number. If you don't do that, it's kind of to me like, well, he's selling any dangerous product without checking the licensing. I can't sell you anthrax, even if I am licensed to own it. I can't sell you anthrax unless you have some reason to own it. You're a scientist or investigator or something. The same would be true with guns. Just because I can legally own something doesn't mean I can sell it to everybody else.
Yeah, I'm not going to go for the individual.
How about selling guns to children?
Like that.
What if I sold a gun to a 5-year-old?
No,
could that be prohibited?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Well, what's the difference? What's the difference?
I think there are certain ages of reason and certain.
No, but why can't I? If you can tell me, you can ban me in a private sale in a parking lot from selling a gun to a 5-year-old. Why can't you tell me in a private sale in a parking lot?
I'm not telling you can't do it in the parking lot. I'm saying you can't do that anytime.
Exactly.
I think that that's
Fine.
just not going to happen.
So let's say that I cannot sell a gun without calling this 1-800 number and checking to see if your name and social security number is on the background list.
And am I qualified to judge the social security card that you give me as to whether or not it's you and whether or not it's legitimate or counterfeit and whether or not it's got a real number on it and stuff like that? I mean, I just don't.
If it's counterfeit, it makes it harder. But it's at least you have a frontline defense. Because listen, a lot of crazy people are not going to go to the trouble of counterfeiting social security cards. Some may, but if it saves a few lives, it doesn't cost hardly anything. What's the problem with it?
You're going after the wrong part. This guy out in Colorado, the guy down at Virginia Tech, the guy out in Arizona, these are not people who went to gun shows and exercised private sales. These are guys who went out and bought them through licensed dealers. They were perfectly eligible to get them. Nobody caught the fact that they were crazy. Nobody caught the fact that they were, a crisis or a tragedy waiting to happen. That's where we need to focus the time and attention and the effort in presenting that. You're solving a problem that so far doesn't exist.
Well, I would solve that problem, but as far as these people are concerned, I have no problem banning assault weapons. It seems to me that there are 2 legitimate functions of owning arms in the United States. One is hunting, and the other is self-defense. And I don't know any hunter who will tell you they need assault weapons to kill a deer or a moose or a bear.
Hunters use semi-automatic weapons when they go hunting. They do.
Is it that hard?
I'll grant you don't need a fully automatic, but a semi-automatic is. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get 2 shots...
Cock shoot versus shoot. I mean, it's half a second.
If you're shooting a deer, that half a second makes all the difference in the world.
You should have gotten the first shot. If you're a good hunter, you should get the first shot.
I concur.
What about the high-capacity magazines? Can we restrict them to 12? Can you bend on that one?
Mark, the magazines are not the problem.
They are the problem. In Arizona, they were absolutely the problem.
It's the people that are the problem, not the magazines. We
can't stop crazy. You can't stop crazy, I can't stop crazy.
So you're going to limit your own constitutional rights
It's not in the Constitution.
We've been there. Stop crazy.
It's not in the Constitution. We've been there. We can disagree on that. That's not the issue. The issue is, in Arizona, probably 4 of those 6 people would have been alive today if Jared Loughner had a gun that shot 12 bullets rather than 30. I mean, I don't know how many were on the latter 18 end of that magazine. I could probably research it and find out. But if you can't hit a deer in 12 bullets, can't you let the deer go while you change it?
I will concur that you are not going to get the deer after the second shot because it will be gone.
Okay, so how about banning high-capacity magazines? Can we agree on that?
You're
not even that.
The magazines, Mark, are not the problem.
They are the problem.
The people are the problem.
But you just said you can't stop crazy.
Well, I think we can do a better job in identifying crazy.
I'm fine with that.
I think we can do a better job in
What's the purpose of high-capacity magazines?
The guy in Arizona, remember, law enforcement knew about this guy. Law enforcement was, sort of almost but not quite watching this guy. This guy had been thrown out of school. He didn't withdraw from school the way the Joker in Colorado did. This guy was thrown out of school for being a bizarre person.
You're talking about Jared Loughner now.
Jared Loughner, yes.
But Mike, in any major American city, you can see enough people muttering things under their breath that you wonder if they're crazy. And some may be crazy, and some may be speaking in that little cell phone that they have in their ear. I've learned that. But you can't, it's very hard to monitor all crazy. Tell me what the legitimate use is of high-capacity magazines if you're not in law enforcement. What's the legitimate use? Hunters don't have them, and self-defense. If they're coming after you and you can't get them in 12 bullets, they've got you.
It's not a matter of.
It's not a matter of self-defense or hunting, is it?
It's not a matter of legitimate use.
It's not. So if there's no legitimate use, let's ban it.
It's a matter of constitutional protection.
All right. You've mentioned the Constitution so many times. You're going to force me to pull it out. As I read, of course, the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which says in full. Conservatives never like to read the first 10 words or so. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The founders were very concerned that local militias be around to protect the state and be able to be called up by the state and be well regulated by the state. I have no problem with the National Guards. You can arm them with machine guns for all I care.
They do.
They are, and I'm fine with that. They are well-regulated militias, and those right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And that's all this document refers to.
And what did the Supreme Court say in their Heller decision?
After 230 years of holding the way I just read this document, a very recent Supreme Court in a 5-4 decision a couple of years ago ruled that people do have the right to keep and bear arms, that the first 10 words of the Second Amendment are meaningless, that the founders were drinking a little too much and they didn't know what they were saying. Scalia never addresses why it is that he completely ignores a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Those 13 words are meaningless to Scalia. I fought with Scalia about this. I believe that the Constitution has meaning, and I don't think you should just ignore words or throw away words. They did say that a few years ago in a 5-4 decision, but even in that decision, which tells you what a stupid decision it was, even in that decision, Scalia said you could still have reasonable gun regulations. Well, you know what, Justice Scalia, if you are right that the whole first 13 words of the Second Amendment are meaningless, and the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed is absolute, then everyone has a right to a nuclear weapon in the United States of America, and ricin and anthrax and all the rest, and machine guns, all of those rules would go out the window. How can you ban machine guns if your view is it's absolute?
Here's
machine guns are arms.
Here's the answer to your question, Mark, that you posed in the beginning when you set this up when we first came back from the break. And that is that, there's just not enough discussion about this going on in Congress. Why is there no discussion going on in Congress, blah, blah, blah? Well, the answer is because there's no one in Congress that wants to adopt your point of view.
Because they don't want to fight the National Rifle Association.
President Obama himself sent his press secretary, Jay Carney, to the microphone to say the president does not see any need for any new policy initiatives as a result of this. If the president and the Democratic leaders in Congress don't support your point of view, you're sort of out there alone, aren't you?
Look, the president wants to win Ohio. The president wants to win Virginia. The president knows well, as I do, that there are a lot of people for whom gun control is the first priority in voting. Gun control is one of those fascinating issues that proves what I learned when I worked in Congress, that sometimes the strength of one's held position is stronger than one's belief. Gun control consistently gets 60-65% of Americans, sometimes as high as 75% of Americans, who support these reasonable gun regulations that I laid out here. But the 25% that love their guns really love their guns and feel so strongly they become one-issue candidates.
Let me ask you a quick one. Would it be beneficial or harmful to the president and congressional Democrats' chances if you made a full court press starting tomorrow and carried it through the election?
I won't deny that it would be politically the wrong thing to do, but it would still be morally the right thing to do. And I'm not going to change my position because just because I recognize the political realities. I think we could save lives, and I still think it's the right thing to do.
Do you think that's where the president is? He just recognizes the political reality? He's willing to. Okay.
I do. I think it's unfortunate, but I recognize political reality myself. Speaking of political realities, let me talk about another political reality, and that is Mitt Romney and his tax returns. The political reality is Americans think he has something to hide. I think he has something to hide. Why won't he just do as his father did? His father was a pioneer. He released 12 or 15 years, I forget how many, it was more than 10 years of tax returns. What is it, do you think, in Mitt Romney's tax returns that he doesn't want to show the American people?
It's not that there's something in there he doesn't want to show the American people. Look, they're good, they're honest, they're complete tax returns.
We don't know that.
We don't know that. The IRS would be prosecuting him now.
No, they don't check most tax returns.
I think any tax return at that level they check. And besides, President Obama has been in office for more than 3 years. He's known that Mitt Romney is potentially one of his opponents. I would assume he directed the IRS 3 years ago to randomly conduct audits on Governor Romney and to ensure that everything was there.
That would be illegal.
Of course it would be, but he does everything else illegal, so what difference does it make?
Give me a break. Richard Nixon did that as part of, we found that out in the Watergate hearings. If President Obama did that, that would be sorely wrong, and I would oppose it. It would be illegal, and I don't think he has done it, and there's no evidence that he has.
But I assume he has. Why is he not? I mean, he's
because this president upholds the law.
He's directed his Secretary of Homeland Security not to enforce immigration laws.
No, that's not true. He has directed his Secretary of Homeland Security to selectively enforce Homeland Security laws so that we focused on the worst criminals rather than young people who are in here through no fault of their own and have committed no crime other than being here.
But there's no foundation in law for him to do that.
Sure, there is. Selective enforcement. Well, every police officer has selective enforcement. I know you know this. They don't stop every speeder.
Prosecutors have selective enforcement.
Prosecutors have selective enforcement as well.
Officers.
Well, they both do. They both do. I guarantee you, the police, as someone who is known to drive a little bit fast on the highways, I guarantee you they don't stop every speeder, and the prosecutor doesn't prosecute every crime. The Attorney General of the United States is the nation's lead prosecutor. And he has discretion, as does Secretary of Homeland Security, as does the President, to decide prosecution. But when we come back, because I think you've escaped my question, Mitt Romney has released fewer tax returns than any winning candidate for president in modern history. Every other one has given at least 5 years. Mitt Romney won't. What is he hiding? I don't think he's going to be able to keep it up. I want to know both politically and as a matter of ethics whether Mitt Romney should release his tax returns. I want to know what you think too. 888-488-MARK. Call in after this.
Too many women get hit by their boyfriends and husbands. Too many women are pressured into having unprotected sex. Half of the people in the world living with AIDS are women. It doesn't have to be this way. Together, we can change this reality. Let's strive for a world free of violence.
At Volunteers of America, we don't just give kids a way to stay off the streets. We give them the tools they need to reach their full potential. We don't just help the elderly receive needed care. We help them live life to the fullest. We don't just provide food for homeless individuals and families. We provide job training and placement so they can buy groceries. Volunteers of America is a national organization that for over 100 years has provided programs and services that allow people to overcome their challenges to become vital members of their community. At Volunteers of America, we don't just help people, we help people help themselves. Find out how you can support the programs that are working in your community. Contact Volunteers of America today. Call 1-800-899-0089.
Drivers face all kinds of distractions.
Guys, stop playing. No. 127 consecutive.
Before your wireless phone becomes one of them, stop. Drive safely. Keep your phone in easy reach and dial sensibly. In bad weather or traffic, call later and use a hands-free device. Remember, with wireless, safety is your call.
Here again, the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. My guest is Republican strategist Mike Lane. Now, Mike, before the break, I asked you, what is Mitt Romney hiding? Every single presidential candidate since, in the last 50 years or so, has released at least 5 years of tax returns. The one exception is John McCain, and he didn't do so well in 2008. He released 2. Every single other one, presidential candidate or the opponent, either side, has released at least 5 years of tax returns. Every winning candidate has released at least 5 years of tax returns. What is it that Mitt Romney is hiding? What does he not want? His wife, Ann Romney, said recently, "We've given you people all you need to know." What is it that we, the people, don't need to know about Mitt Romney's tax returns?
Well, as you know, tax returns are private. They're protected by statute. I don't know that we need to know anything about anybody's tax returns. I think that
presidential candidate?
You know what, Mark? I've been voting for 45 years. No, 42 years. I have never, ever gone to their website and looked at anybody's tax returns, not once.
Here's the thing. You know as well as I do politically that the moment Mitt Romney releases his tax returns, if there's nothing in there of any interest,
well, of course there's things there of interest. People are voyeurs. Of course there's things in there of interest.
There may be a couple days mentioning his Swiss bank accounts, a couple days mentioning, the secrets, the tax havens in the Cayman Islands and all that stuff. And if there's no bombshells in there, it'll go away. People don't remember President Obama's tax returns. They don't remember Kerry's tax returns. And Kerry is a very rich man, although not as rich as Mitt Romney.
But he refused to release his wife's tax returns.
He released 5 years of his tax returns.
But he would not release his wife's tax returns, which is where all the money was. So, he was sheltering it in his wife's name.
Mitt Romney is running for president based on his business expertise.
Right. And
I think if Mitt Romney agrees not to ever mention his business expertise again, then fine. We won't care about his tax returns. We'll just focus on him as governor of Massachusetts. But he can't run on it and then say how much I took off my taxes for running this is not in the question.
He's not running on his tax returns. He's running on his business expertise.
You think he's going to go away with this? Because I don't.
I do.
George Will said release it. The Weekly Standard said release it. On the right, people are saying release these tax returns. This will be he could end the story now, or he can keep this story every single day until November.
I think,
as a Democrat, I guess I hope he doesn't release his tax returns. Because we're going to hit this every single day until November.
Here's the thing. This is going to be a story as long as you can keep it alive. If he releases them,
keep it alive till November.
If he releases them, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of pages, and you're going to talk about one page every day. You're not going to be finished until the end of the 8th year.
He released 2 years.
There's not the end. Well, he is going to release 2 years. He's going to release another.
He released 1 year.
And he's got another year that he's going to release in another month.
He released 1 year after Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum made a huge deal out of it. He released 1 year. He's going to release, 2011, which he apparently hasn't finished yet. He's going to release soon. These are, let's just say, tax returns made in contemplation of running for president. What do you think is in the tax returns that are not made in contemplation of running for president? I have my own suggestions.
Since he's been contemplating running for president since the 1990s, I think that all tax returns would be tax returns.
So what's he hiding?
He's not hiding anything.
Why does he release them?
Because why?
Every other presidential candidate has.
Why?
Richard Nixon purer than Mitt Romney?
You know what? Here's the story.
Ronald Reagan purer than Mitt Romney?
You can hit on this all you want.
We will.
The fact of the matter is the American people are more concerned about their own tax returns and whether they're going to have to file one because they have a job or whether they're not going to file a tax return because they have no job. The American people care about the economy. They care about their jobs. They care about there are no jobs for their children or for themselves. That's the issue, Mark. It's not tax returns. Nobody other than you and the campaign manager in the Obama campaign care.
You can change the subject all you want, but I think the American people care when a super rich billionaire cheats the system, legally or illegally, and makes money through ways that ordinary Americans can't make. When they play by rules that no one else plays by.
Wait. You can't get away with that. There's no such thing as, quote, cheating the system legally.
Sure there is.
That's working within the system. That is, if you're legal, you are not cheating. Look, I was offended. Will you defend the Obama campaign's press call when his deputy press spokeswoman called Mitt Romney a felon?
She did not.
She did. All right.
No. So let's talk about what Stephanie Cutter said. She said either Mitt Romney is lying about when he said that he retired from Bain in 1999,
which he did,
or or he signed documents on the SEC that if he didn't tell the truth on, would be committing a felony.
And
that is an accurate statement.
And her expertise as a securities lawyer is what?
That's an accurate statement.
Mark,
either he's lying then, or he's lying now.
She's a reckless hack.
When did Mitt Romney retire?
1999.
Okay, then his documents in 2001 saying he was the CEO of Bain and the sole shareholder under penalty of perjury to the SEC were false.
No.
No, because Romney's answer is, and this one really requires Lewis Carroll and the Jabberwocky. You really have to go behind the looking glass on this one. His argument is that he's the sole shareholder and the CEO of Bain in '99. He is in 2000. He is in 2001. He is in 2002. And then in 2002, he retroactively retired in 1999. He literally took the 3 years and poof, they're out of existence. And that's what you want Americans to believe?
Look, Mark. Everybody knows that he left to go run the Salt Lake Olympics.
And everyone knows that he was attending meetings at Bain.
He left Bain. He was still the owner. Of course he was attending meetings, but he left Bain.
Still running the place.
He wasn't making decisions. He wasn't any day-to-day hands-on management. He was 100% in Salt Lake, running those Olympics, saving them from themselves, and running the most successful, spectacular Olympics we'd had in America to date at that point. Now, what about that? Don't you and the president understand? I mean, you can't save the Olympics and continue to run a major company like Bain at the same time. It just doesn't happen. He retired. He stepped out. You get advice from your SEC lawyers. Oh, you still own the stock. You better put your name on this. Better be safe than sorry. So, okay, you put your name on it. You sign it. You send it in. That's the way it is. The Washington Post.
Do you know who contradicts you?
The Washington Post gives the president 3 Pinocchios on exactly what you're saying.
This is actually very interesting. The Washington Post gave it Pinocchios until they found out about the SEC filings. Because until they found out, and I'll tell you who disagrees with you. Mitt Romney disagrees with you in 1999. He said when he was leaving the Olympics, he issued a press release saying that he would continue to make key investment and personnel decisions at Bain.
Right, and didn't.
And didn't. And then told the SEC he was. He told the SEC he was the sole shareholder.
He put his name on it. Right, but that's not making decisions.
Massachusetts corporate law, he said he's the sole shareholder and CEO.
Mark. He was in Salt Lake. Everybody knows he's in Salt Lake. We can document what he was doing in Salt Lake.
And while you're in Utah, you can't make decisions that affect a company in Massachusetts. I didn't realize we had these barriers to thought in America.
You cannot save Olympics that were as disastrously organized and planned and bring them to fruition and make them the most successful Olympics in the history of this country and run a major corporation on the other coast at the same time. You can't do it.
Do you know what he's hiding in his tax returns? I'd put money on it.
He's not hiding anything.
What he's hiding in his tax returns is the fact that he continued to make key investment and personnel decisions at Bain. That he did exactly what he said he would do in 1999. That he told the SEC the truth. He did not commit a felony. He told them the truth, and he said he's still running the company. His tax returns will show that, which is why he won't release them.
I assume you've seen his tax returns.
I haven't.
To make a reckless accusation like that.
I'm saying, I don't know what he's hiding, but I'll tell you this. If he weren't hiding anything, he would have disclosed it.
You know what? I've seen a lot of tax returns. I have. Nowhere on a tax return does it indicate where you are, what meetings you're attending, who you're instructed to do what. So there's nothing in a tax return that would back up what you just said. Absolutely nothing.
Sure there is. A tax return has meals that you incurred. If he had high business meals, if he had high business trips related to Bain, you have a Schedule C, as you know, Mike, when you do at your own business, and it will tell you the amount of money you spent on trips, the amount of money you spent on meals, everything he did for Bain. He had a separate Schedule C for the Olympics. Let's see those tax returns. Let's find out exactly what he did.
Any travel he might have done for Bain would have been all corporate sponsored, all reimbursed or whatever. You're not going to find it on his tax returns.
Well, let's find it on Bain's tax returns.
You're going to find it on tax returns.
Let's find it on Bain's tax returns.
Go have at it.
Well, the point is this guy's got something to hide. He clearly has something to hide because every other presidential candidate discloses their tax returns, and he won't. And I got to tell you something.
What did John McCain have to hide?
John McCain just is the only candidate
that
only
John McCain have to
hide? 2 years. And the American people, I don't think that was right. He lost. Not a single winning presidential candidate.
You just said because Mitt Romney is only releasing 2 years that he's got something to hide. And John McCain released 2 years. What was John McCain hiding?
I don't know why he didn't release more than 2 years.
What was he hiding?
But
You said that was the issue.
I'll tell you this. John McCain didn't run on his business expertise. John McCain had been senator for 20-odd years by the time he ran for president. So my guess is there wasn't much in John McCain's tax returns, and he should have disclosed all 5 years. But this is a guy with a very complex... One of the things we found out in the last tax returns, we found out he had Swiss bank accounts. We found out he had Cayman Islands tax havens.
You got a problem with that?
I do.
Why?
I do. Because ordinary people can't play by these rules.
What?
Ordinary Americans.
Mark, you or I can go open a Swiss bank account tomorrow. We don't, it's past time now, but we can do it. At midnight tonight, it'll be 9 o'clock in Switzerland. We can do it.
Mitt Romney had a 13.9% tax rate that you and I can't get. And you and I can't get it because this is only for the super rich. This is only for the hedge fund owners. This is only for people that are in a rarefied system where they trade in the billions.
You pay the same capital gains rate that Mitt Romney pays.
But he pays the capital gains on his ordinary income. He gets to play. This is my point on the LIBOR scandal, which actually is a nice segue to it. If you are super rich, if you are a multi-billionaire, Republicans claim Democrats don't like them because they're rich. No, it's not that people don't like Mitt Romney because he's rich. People don't like the idea that rich people get to play by different rules than the middle class.
Rich people don't pay. Look, teachers who invest pay the same rate on their capital gains. Firefighters who invest pay the same rate on their capital gains.
Teachers,
it's
not capital gains.
Policemen who invest pay the same rate on their capital gains.
These weren't investments.
Mark, you and I would pay the same rate on the capital gains. There's no special privilege here.
A management fee is not a capital gain, in my humble opinion.
Okay, well then you've got to change the law.
Well, I agree. The law is terrible.
But you can't say that there's anything wrong with the tax return when it's perfectly legitimate.
I didn't say he broke the law in his tax return. What I'm saying is that his tax return exemplifies the problem many Americans have with super rich individuals who not only use a system that very much rewards the super rich at the expense of the middle class, but want to keep that system. At least Warren Buffett, who gets the same great tax return, admits it's a crazy idea to charge his janitor and his secretary more than he does. Mitt Romney likes the current system. He profits by it. He pays less taxes than the middle class, and he doesn't want to let Americans see that legally he cheats the system.
Mitt Romney paid $3 million in taxes last year.
Less than 14%.
He paid $3 million in taxes last year.
He made hundreds of millions of dollars.
No, he made $20 million.
Okay, fine, $20 million.
And he
paid less than 14%.
And he donated an additional $3 million of his personal money to charity.
Why do you think?
I'd like to see anybody match that.
Why does Mitt Romney's janitor have to pay a higher tax rate than Mitt Romney?
I don't believe Mitt Romney has a janitor.
Fine, his secretary. Why does he pay a higher rate? His babysitter. Why does
Mitt Romney,
whoever his gardener pays a higher rate than he does?
Mitt Romney paid $3 million in taxes. I would imagine his gardener pays $3,000.
I imagine his gardener pays a lot higher than 14%.
His gardener's a small business person.
I know.
They deduct everything. So I'll bet you his effective tax rate is down in the 8 to 10%.
You believe that super rich people should pay less taxes as a percentage of income than ordinary Americans?
I will bet you his gardener is down in the 8 to 10% tax range. I will guarantee that.
Our listeners, many of them, pay a lot higher than 14%. Many Americans do. Someone makes hundreds of millions of dollars should pay.
I'm all for lowering the
888-488-MARK. Let me know what you think. We'll be right back after this.
Art, a universal language, an expression of culture, of self. And now, thanks to Empowered Women International, a way for emerging and established immigrant and refugee artists and artisans to find hope to earn a living while enriching the lives of all of us. Empowered Women International, making a better America every day. For more information on Empowered Women International's educational programs, or to make a tax-free donation, contact cfripp@aol.com.
Here, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Here, kitty, kitty.
You'd think it would be easy to tell which kids have trouble with their eyesight. But that's not always the case. Even though 1 in 4 children may have a vision problem, eye doctors tell us the symptoms aren't always so obvious. We do know that 80% of all childhood learning is visual. And without good vision, kids can have trouble learning to read and may fall behind in school. For clues on how to spot the real-life signs of childhood vision problems and what parents can do, visit checkyearly.com. A public service message from the Vision Council of America, and reading is fundamental.
Here again, the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. The problem, Mike, and my guest is Mike Lane, Republican strategist Mike Lane. The problem, I think, with Mitt Romney, whether it's tax returns, whether it's his retroactive retirement, where he can wipe away magically 3 years to pretend they didn't exist, to me is very similar to the problem with LIBOR. For those who don't know, the London Interbank Offered Rate actually affects your life. It affects everyone's life. It affects your life, it affects my life. It affects the life of virtually every person on this planet because pretty much all of us have either a credit card or a mortgage or a car loan or have sometime borrowed money at some point or the other all over the world. 80–90% of humanity is affected by this rate that's set in secret, we now know, by 16 bankers all over the world. You want a great conspiracy theory? Don't talk about the Federal Reserve. Don't talk about the ones I hear, the Bilderberg Group or all this crazy stuff. You got one right here. And he finds out that these 16 bankers would actually change the rates, not out of reality, not because they were really lending the money, but because they wanted their investments to do well. They literally had their thumb on the scale. It seems to me that we have a problem in America and around the world where maybe not even ordinary rich people, not even millionaires, but the 100 millionaires, the billionaires, the people who play at the scale of LIBOR, the people who play at the scale of Willard Mitt Romney can do things the rest of us can't do. They can get ordinary income from management fees and charge it at less than 14%. They can put their thumb on the scale of interest rates. Heck, rich people can get off with murder. We've learned from O.J. Simpson, while the poor guy might go to death row even though he's innocent. I think that one of the differences between liberals and conservatives is we liberals really take the 14th Amendment seriously, equal protection under the law, and we don't think that rich people should have more justice than poor people, rich people should have more of a right to vote than poor people, rich people should have more free speech than poor people. We think that everyone should be treated equally under the law, whether you're rich or you're poor.
Mark, some of the things that I agree.
Glad to hear it.
Some of the things that I think have been very good in terms of sending the signal to people that they're not above the law, that they can't play above the rules. Back in the 80s, a guy named Michael Milken, who was the master of the universe. He was the one that the book was written about. He fell from grace and he spent a good deal of time in jail. Our current day guy is a guy named Bernie Madoff, who stole a lot of money, and he's going to spend a lot of time in jail.
The rest of his life.
Now these 16 people are going to be prosecuted.
I don't think so.
You
know why I don't think so?
They're going to be prosecuted, and they're going to spend time in jail, and they should.
Well, I would love it, but I don't think a lot of their conduct was illegal. That's my concern.
If you are artificially, if you are flat out lying to the people who set the interest rates about what you've paid for purposes of manipulating it, that is a crime.
The British Bankers Association, first of all, this is British law. Okay. The British Bankers Association would poll these 16 bankers and find out what they said.
What's your overnight rate? Right. What's your overnight rate
for banks? They didn't check to see if they told the truth or not.
Right. And they didn't tell the truth. They manipulated
that's right. They certainly did.
To make their own bank look stronger, so they would get a better rate, so they would make more profits. And the rest of us were getting screwed in the meantime.
All true.
Not all of us were getting screwed. Actually, some of us benefited from it. But
the point is, it was not a free market. They were busy putting their thumb on the scale, affecting their own rates. I think that a lot of Americans understand that this isn't just something that happens in Great Britain. That this is something that happens in the United States of America, where people like Mitt Romney legally pay less than 14%, while hard-earned Americans that earn $100,000 are paying 30%. But people that earn $20 million are paying less than 14%. Mitt Romney You said any of us could get access to a Swiss bank account. It's a lot harder for you or me to deposit a whole bunch of money in a secret Swiss bank account. Mitt Romney's got all the accountants and all the tax attorneys.
There are no more secret
it.
Swiss bank accounts, Mark.
There's the Cayman Islands.
There's no more secret Swiss bank accounts. They've all gone away.
Here's the point. There's tax havens out there. They'd be Liechtenstein or Luxembourg.
Right.
I don't care where.
And you know what you do?
I guarantee you Mitt Romney's had his share.
And when you repatriate that money back here for your own use, you pay taxes on it. It's just, all it is deferring the taxes. It's not getting rid of the taxes.
Why should they be deferred? Why should an ordinary teacher or firefighter have to pay their taxes today, but Mitt Romney and his kids can defer their taxes for 50 years? I have a problem with the current tax system.
There are tax deferments. Look, investing in your own IRA is a tax deferred contribution.
I'm fine with that one.
Everybody does it.
But Mitt Romney has tens of millions of dollars in his IRA.
If you had
tens of millions of
dollars, you'd be looking for ways to minimize your tax expense as well.
What I'm telling you is I don't like a tax system. I don't like a financial system that says if you are super rich, you can get away with things that the ordinary person can't get away with. And my problem with Mitt Romney is not that he took advantage of this. I understand that he's trying to make as much money. He took advantage of it. My problem is that these rules exist that help out the super rich at the expense of the rest of us, and that Mitt Romney supports these rules. Like I said, I have no problem with Warren Buffett. He takes advantage of these too, but he recognizes the rules are stupid and he wants to change them. Your party likes these rules.
I'd be perfectly willing to take a look at any one of these haven shelters, avoidance, deferments, whatever they are.
Schemes.
On a case schemes, and a case-by-case basis, and I'll bet you and I could come up with an agreement to eliminate maybe half of them.
Maybe we could.
I think we could.
But Mitt Romney
there's no problem with them now. I mean, where is the problem that Warren Buffett took advantage of these things, or Bill Gates took advantage of these things when they're perfectly legal? They're there to be taken advantage of.
Because they're wrong in the first place.
Okay, so let's work on changing them.
Let me suggest to you that the reason we go back to Mitt Romney's tax returns, the reason why he doesn't release his tax returns is, my guess is he is legally, I haven't suggested he done anything illegal. My suggestion is he is legally taking advantage of all kinds of tax avoidance schemes and loopholes and accounting tricks that are legal, but only a super rich guy with an army of accountants can take advantage of. And I think most Americans say, you know what? He's not one of us.
He's going to pay taxes on that money when it's repatriated. When he takes it in.
Why can't he keep? Why should he ever repatriate it? Why can't he keep it in Swiss bank accounts?
First of all,
for 500 years.
First of all,
generation after generation.
Well, I suppose he can. But what good does it do to keep something there if you can't use it?
Well, you only use it if you run out of your other hundreds of millions of dollars.
Two points. The first is that money has already been taxed. When Bain made the money and reported it as a corporate profit before they distributed it to their shareholders and owners, Bain paid taxes on it already. So that money has already been taxed.
The rest of us who get dividends pay taxes on them.
That money has already been taxed.
If I get an IBM dividend, I pay taxes on it. Why should Mitt Romney not have to pay taxes?
You just told me that Mitt Romney pays 15% on his dividend income.
He pays less than 14%.
All right.
And this money that's in Swiss bank accounts, I'd love to trace it and find out whether he paid taxes on it or not.
Have at it.
I can't see his tax returns.
You've already
the American
conceded,
people should know.
You've already conceded that whatever he's doing is legal.
No,
and
I've conceded
blah, blah, blah.
that for all I know it's legal. I don't know whether it's legal or illegal. Let's check it out.
My second point is this. For about 20 years now, we've had the opportunity here in America where if you don't think you're being taxed high enough, it's the Tax Me More bill where you can make a voluntary contribution to the Treasury on your tax form every year. If you want to pay more in taxes than you are legally obligated to do so, you can. The President of the United States, ever since he's been president, has declined to pay more than he's obligated to. Why should Mitt Romney pay more than he's obligated to?
The issue is not that Mitt Romney should pay more than he's obligated to.
Well, then that's not what we're talking about.
The issue is that we have laws on the books that protect super rich people like Mitt Romney, so that they get special breaks that the rest of us don't get. It may be perfectly legal.
I'd be perfectly willing to look at those on a case-by-case basis.
And I am glad that you are so generous in that regard. But Willard Mitt Romney is not. Your candidate for president does not want to get rid of those loopholes. He supports. I believe
he does. I believe he has.
He's against the Buffett tax.
No. I believe Mitt Romney is firmly in the camp of let's lower the tax rates and simplify.
Because 14% is too much for him.
Simplify the code by eliminating the loopholes.
Name one.
He is firmly in that camp. Okay, you can't say he's not for eliminating loopholes.
Then you tell me one specific loophole that Mitt Romney, as a matter of public record, has said he's willing to get rid of.
I
don't think he has.
I haven't read
the
paper.
No, because he says, I'm going to get rid of the loopholes. He doesn't specify anything.
Why don't we go to mittromney.com, and I'm sure the viewers can find his entire proposal there.
I'll tell you what, next time we debate,
what loophole
you go to that website, and then you tell me what loophole he's trying to get rid of. What loophole is the
president trying to get rid of? I mean, it's,
I'll tell you what loophole he's trying to get rid of. The Buffett loophole. The Mitt Romney loophole.
That's not a loophole.
The hedge fund loophole.
That's not a loophole.
It is a loophole.
No,
if you get a management
tax
fee.
law, it's not a loophole. Mark, a loophole is a deduction for something,
A loophole is
that shouldn't be a deduction. It's not
right. That's what a loophole is. It's a legal deduction that shouldn't be a deduction. That's exactly right. And that's when hedge fund managers pay less than their secretaries, that's a loophole.
Well, they don't.
That's what
hedge fund managers pay
far
more in taxes than do their secretaries.
It's not about the level.
Far more.
It's the tax rate, as you well know. Hey, we got a little bit of time left. I want to move on just in the last bit and talk a little about Syria. I think you and I may agree on this one. Not sure. I have had a number of members of the Syrian Free Army actually come on my show from Damascus illegally. In fact, one of them got shot after coming on my show. Not necessarily because he came on my show. I just want to be very clear about that. He's alive. But they've been contacting me from Damascus. They've been coming on my radio show, including the nationally syndicated one, and they've said a lot of interesting things. I do not know exactly who these people are. I concede that point. But I know what they're fighting against. I know they're fighting against a regime that has murdered more than 10,000. Indeed, it looks to me like it's more than 20 or 30,000, but we don't know the exact numbers because Syria doesn't allow
independent journalists. I think the official estimates are in the 18,000 range at this point.
There you go.
Those are the official estimates.
All right, so I suspect it'll be over 20,000. Innocent men, women, and children. He described the brutality of people coming in and just mowing down villages.
250 in one day just last week.
Bashar Assad's father just took the fourth largest city in Syria, Hama, and razed it to the ground and literally turned it back to the dust. He's also not a dictator that serves American interests. You could argue that Mubarak was a bad dictator, but at least he served American interests. This guy serves Iranian interests and is closely connected with the terrorist group Hezbollah.
In fact, he is Hezbollah's patron saint.
Absolutely, absolutely, and he is how the funneling of arms gets in and destroys Lebanon as well. The president has tried hard to work through the United Nations, and that's a clear failure because Russia and China are going to veto everything. The rhetoric is good from the administration, but the policy, I think, is far too weak. I would like to see us actively arm these people. I would like to see an active no-fly zone. What's interesting is the only country in the Arab Spring that is still very thankful of the United States is Libya, the country that we went in and we helped, but they freed themselves. I'd like to see a Libyan-style support for the people of Syria. I don't exactly know who they are, I admit that. But I guess from my interviews, I take them at their word because they seem very reasonable in the sense that they're not Al-Qaeda. They have groups of Christians and Kurdish people and Druze. It's not a religious war. And they even told me, you might be interested to know on the air, that while they differ with Israel on the Golan Heights, they think that that can be peacefully resolved and they don't want any war with Israel either. So we're never going to get perfection, but between the devil you know and the people we're not sure about but seem to be on the right side of history, I'd like to help them.
Mark, you've hit the nail on the head in describing Assad. He is the devil. He is Iran's ally.
Absolutely.
He's Hezbollah's patron
saint. Are you for
saint.
helping the Free Syrian Army?
I think we ought to treat this the same way we did Libya, and I'm disappointed the president has not taken that step. And I think we've proved once again the United Nations is nothing but a joke.
In this case, that's certainly the case. Mike, I appreciate you coming on the show. Nice to end on a point of agreement. If you have any comments and you want to leave them on my website, please do so. Go to marklevinetalk.com and let me know what you thought of tonight's show. This is Mark Levine.